Hey, what's up, people? Alright, so we're back for our second session. Little break. Went to the gym, etc., etc. Alright, so let's see, how long exactly did I go? Because, again, I've gotten really bad about not recording my finish times here. 2 hours. So that was 2 hours, actually. I didn't realize it was that long, but, I mean, that's cool. It was literally exactly 2 hours. We did take a 10-minute break, but whatever. So, we continued working solution for save file formats and data retrieval / save logic. Yeah. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing here as well. We're going to be doing the same exact thing. Okay, so I will just. All right, so we had made a pretty big breakthrough with the last session, wherein we finally figured out exactly how we are going to. Oh yes, I do have to check the stream. I'm not gonna like post it, but I do want to check it to make sure that it is indeed working through with the last session. Okay, yep, there it goes. Okay, so we figured out. I was proposing two different options, and it was having to do with the offsets and the methodology for accessing data from the save file and how we would go about grabbing particular data without like having to, you know, just like kind of pour everything out of the file. We could just go in there and grab exactly what we need. Like we have a brain, you know, we're not just gonna do it dumb way, we're gonna do it in a smart way. So we figured out our chosen solution is to use pickle and saved offset tracking dictionary. Saved offset tracking this is just going to be a Python dictionary, just a straight up Python dict, which would also be saved every time a new object was saved in the file. Was saved or updated, so like if it's a new entry or if it's just an existing object that is being reassigned to a new value is being assigned to. So we can load back in the offset dictionary from pickle upon reconnect to access data individually, instead of loading all objects and figuring out which namespaces are associated with each object in the pickle file. Right, okay, so that is what we're going to do. So we're going to get rid of this, and we will just go ahead and do this. Okay, so we need to implement this. Alright, so let's go ahead and hop over to refactor. So this is obviously going to exist within the framework of, or in the context of the client class, and so does it need to be a class attribute? What is it exactly? So what am I talking about specifically? We're talking about the we'll call it the, well, it's a dictionary that references, or that contains the save data points. It has all the different data structures. It is really a map. It is a save file map. But a map, like in programming, is like a map in Python is an actual like construct. It's a type of object that we're not using a map, you know. So if we were to call it a map in Python, you would assume that it has to do with the map function. The map function applies a given function to each item. Applies a given function to each item in an iterable like a list, tuple, or string, and returns a map object, which is an iterator. Function is the function to apply to each element of the iterables, and then the iterable is the input sequence. If multiple iterables are provided, the function should take as many arguments as there are iterables. Literal numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 squared equals map lambda x of x. So it calls this function on all these different numbers. Yeah, that is just not what we're doing. And then called mapping data structures. And by that, a map can also refer to a mapping type, specifically a dictionary. A dictionary is a collection of key value pairs where each key maps to a value. Okay, so since you can refer to a map, but I don't want to be confusing, and I guess what we would call it would be the save file offset map. Offset dict. Save file offset dict. Yeah. So we would put that down here. And we'll call it a dictionary. And yeah, we don't need to transfer this, so we can list that. Now we'll go over here and actually create it. So let's go down here. And then we'll add this. So self.savefile offset dictionary. And is there really a reason why we would have this attached to the class? Well, not really. I mean, it could just be its own thing. But I mean, since we're already like, we have everything defined in the context of the client, which is actually not true. We do have just like straight up variables, you know, and we could just treat it as such, but I feel like having it as a in this format is actually like good. At least that's what I believe so. Okay, so we're gonna put our comment for the below line, and the type is gonna be a dictionary. And then purpose is the dict used which has key equal to data structure name. Key equals data structure name and value equal to associated save file location or save files offset location. The dict we use to determine where in the save file each namespace data structure is located. Okay, so now that we have that established, CSV file, pickle RB as save file, pickle load save file, and then so the first thing we need to do is to load in the game ID from the save file, and that is here where we do with open CSV file pickle RB as save file, and then well, in this case, we know that game ID is the first thing. So game ID should be the first thing, right? Which means yeah, but how do we know for sure that it's the first thing? Because at this point, the save file offset dictionary well, it hasn't really been populated. Like, there isn't anything in the pickle file from the very beginning. So what we could do is we could have it pre-populated with the game ID, because it's really only the game ID that we need off the bat, right? Isn't that true? Like, everything else that we need, well, there also is the whatchamacallit, let's see, the started game local or remote. Well, no, that gets assigned. Yeah, so we choose that and then it would get saved. We wouldn't be accessing it from the yeah, we wouldn't be accessing that from the save file. So it's really, I think, just the game ID we would have to have predefined. So we'll just put a note here and put game ID is pre-assigned here because it is a special case that wherein we have to access it at the earliest stage of the game, of the client script. Before it has actually been saved. No PKL. Yeah, so what we do is we would say I guess we could do if so if no, because it's client at this point, we'd say if clients dot save file offset dict. We're looking for the key. Well, we know it exists. I mean, we could have checked for that too. We could have checked to see if the ID existed. Yeah, that would probably be the better way, right? Is to check to see if the ID exists in Python. How to check if key, not ID, if key exists in dict. So if a key exists in a dictionary using the in keyword, so you say key in dictionary. If the key returns false. Alright, so if that's really easy, we'll just do if client save file offset dict or game ID in client save file offset dict or is equal to then we would grab it. Game ID is in client save file offset dict is equal to true, meaning we have saved it to that save file. Well, actually, we first have to load in the dictionary, right? So yeah, we have to load in the dictionary from the save file. Because we're accessing, like if it did disconnect and we reconnected, then that means that the save file offset dictionary let's check it off. Pretty sure we would have to load in the save file offset dictionary first, I believe. Yeah, because if we disconnect it and then we reconnect, the offset dict that we have is not going to so yeah, if we're reconnecting, we want to check to see if there's game ID. What game ID is assigned to. Because we might be reconnecting, and in that case, the game ID would exist in the save file offset dictionary, and it would be assigned to, you know, whatever the ID is. But we couldn't just do this check on the local save file offset dictionary. We would actually have to, yeah, we'd have to load it in. So we actually first have to load it in. So we'll say loaded in save file offset dict, and then we actually need to use so we have to open pickle file. Here's the question: how do we know where that's going to be located in the save file? Like, how do we know where the loaded in save file offset dict is located? How do we know where that is? I mean, we assume that it's the first thing. I guess as long as we ensure that it is the first thing in the file, we're safe, right? And that would mean we would attempt to load it in, and well, basically we would open the file and see if it's empty. If the file is empty, then that means we haven't saved the offset dictionary yet. So really, that would be equivalent to checking the game ID. Because if we haven't saved the offset dictionary to the save file, then that means we definitely don't have the game ID. Because if the first thing that happens before we get the game ID is that we save the offset dictionary, then but if we do have it loaded in, if we do have a populated save file, then we would have to check to see if the game ID has been saved to the save file. You see what I'm saying? But I don't want to. We don't want to be that petty. We'll keep those two operations separate, right? So we're gonna open. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna open the save file, and we're gonna see if it's populated. So how exactly would we check that? How do we quickly check if a PKL file is empty or populated? Why use in over get? What is this? What is this talking about? Alternative used to get. Why did what did it talk about here? Oh, you use in versus get. You can also use the get method to check for this method returns the value if the key exists or none if it doesn't. Why use it in? Use key in dictionary when you only need to check for the existence of the key and access the value safely. There's a key error. Gotcha. To quickly check if a pickle file is empty properly, you can simply check the size of the file or attempt to read from it while handling errors gracefully. So you can check the file size, use the OS module to check the file size. If the size is 0, the file is empty. So you can do import OS file path. If OS path get size file path is equal to 0. Or you could just attempt to load the data, try loading the data. If the file is empty, an EOF error will be raised. I don't really like doing anything that raises an error. So I would just rather do the OS option. So let's go ahead and copy that code. And I know, I mean, well, this is kind of foreign, right? But it is what it is. So I'm going to put a note here and we'll say, this is going to be called pseudocode for checking if save file is populated. If it is, that means well, that means it's a reconnect, right? Yeah, if we're starting, well, what if it's a soft? What if it's a, that means either soft or hard reconnect, right? And I'm pretty sure about that. So to go checking if the save file is populated. If it is, that means either soft or hard reconnect. And why do we do that? Oh, because yeah, so have to attempt to load this to be able to reference the offset location of game ID, which isn't checked next. Right. Right? Isn't that correct? I think that's correct. Yeah, so we have this little section here. Alright. So first off, we're checking to see if the file is populated. And to do this, so let's paste this code in that we just copied. And the indentation is messed up, of course. That's what it does. And let's get rid of these empty spaces. And now, well, we don't need this. We just want OS path. Yeah, we can say if OS path gets equal to 0. So let's go ahead and comment that out, and we will import the OS at the top. So we'll do that up here. We already import OS, so that's okay. We don't even need to worry about that. Alright. Then we have, so get rid of that line. Then we have file path equals data pickle. We don't need to do that. Get rid of this. So now we're going to check. We'll say if os.path.getSize of the, oh, so we did file path equals data pkl. Well, the file path is actually, is it in main? Yeah, it's in main. So yeah, we could just say cs save file pickle, right? That would work, I think. So say cs save file.pkl. And how about this? At the beginning, we'll just say save file equals, and instead of having to write this, I don't want to have to like write this out again because it's kind of a pain in the ass. We'll just call it save file. So we'll just get the size of the save file like that, and then we say if os path get size of the save file is equal to 0, means save file is empty. see. So if it is equal to 0, then that means well, then we know that game ID is equal to none. Then we know it's not a reconnect. If it was, game ID would be saved in the save file. Not to mention the save file offset dict would also exist there, since it is the first thing saved to the file. So we can know to a certain extent the order, right? Like we won't always know the entire order, but we can know to a high degree a portion of the order. So we have save file equals cs. This needs to be in quotes. It's just a string. So if OS path get size save file is equal to 0, that means it's empty. We know it's not a reconnect. So in this case, we would this. We'll create a variable that's called isReconnect, and it starts off as false. Okay, and so isReconnect is set to false in this instance. That right there. So we know isReconnect is false, and then else, which means elif save file is not empty, then that means we would then check to see if well, then we would have to load in the save file offset dict to reference game ID's offset value. Right? So we will so wouldn't we do this? Say with open cs save file pickle rb as save file. Well, we don't need to do as. We with open save file, and then rb pickle load save file. So yeah, if we loaded, that would load the first object, right? Which would always be loads the first object from the save file, which will always be the save file offset dictionary. Okay. So this actually, we could just say loaded in save file offset dict equals pickle.load save file. And then we would want to say clients dot save file offset dict now equals the loaded in offset dict, right? Isn't that right? Like, don't we need to do that? Or is that redundant? Like, do we not need to have a client save file offset dictionary? Could we just have um, it exist like independently? You know, like, well, no, because we only do this once, right? We only have the loaded in save file offset dict one time, and then subsequently we would just be saving to the save file, and we'd be saving to the save file, and then saving. Well, we would be saving to the save file, but first we would update the save file offset dictionary to include the new offset for the location, the offset location of the in save file, and that's going to be the location of the object we're about to save to the save file, right? So that terminology, like that way to refer to the object is perfectly done through client dict. You just update it. Dump. Is it dump, right? Yeah, because we use dump instead of dumps whenever we use file, as to where if it was in memory, we would do load with an S, and loads and dumps with an S, plural, for in memory. But since we're operating on a file, we use the singular. File is singular, in memory is plural. Certain of that. I learned that yesterday. So yeah, this process right now I think is correct so far. Use with open save file RB. And we say loaded in save file because we know that it's populated, and if it's populated, then it definitely has the save file offset dictionary. So we load that in and using pickle.load, which will load in the first object, which will be that offset dictionary because we know it's going to be the first saved object. And then we assign the namespace client save file offset dictionary to the loaded save file offset dictionary. So now the local version mirrors the save files offset dictionary, so that we have it basically like imported into the local, so that we can use it from the Python file to grab objects from the save file, if that makes sense. So that's all correct. Yeah, that's all correct. Client save file offset dictionary. So what else exactly are we doing? Now that we have it, we would like to use it to reference the game ID, right? So now we're gonna check to see, we can run this line. If game ID is in the client save file offset dictionary, that means, because we create that first anyway. We create the dictionary offset reference before we actually run the save line, so that basically, like, if this exists, well then the other should exist. But actually we should probably not do it that way, because if that line ran and then it disconnected before we actually saved, we should actually check to see not if it's in the dictionary, but if it's in the actual save file. So, well, we know that would be the second object, right? Because we know the order to a certain extent. So if game ID is in, well, we wouldn't reference it like that, right? We would say, so if we load, so what happens if we try to load in a, so I'm trying to figure out, this is all new to me. I've never done this before. This is completely new to me. All this stuff. Um, so I'm trying to make this as airtight as possible, and if you've ever coded before, you know how like important that is. You can throw some shit up there that'll work, but I don't do that. I don't want code that runs. I want code that is damn near perfect. You know what I mean? I want it to be right, like truly correct, because there's value in that. It's just the way it is. Anyway, so we don't, just because it's in the offset dictionary, that doesn't necessarily mean it's actually been saved to the save file. We need to see if it's saved in the save file. So my question is, if we try to load a second object, what happens if we try to load a second object from a PKL file, but there is only one object in that file? So checking the file size is okay. Yeah, we already did that. Quick and efficient. If you need to know if it's empty, you won't detect corrupted files. Yeah, we don't really do that. If you attempt to load a second object from a PK file using pickle load, but the file contains only one object, Python will raise an EOF error because it has reached the end of the file. Okay. Writes serialized objects sequentially to the file. We don't write serialized objects sequentially to the file. Okay, right here. If you use pickle loader, reads the next serialized object from the current file pointer. If there are no more objects to read, pickle loader raises an error to indicate the end of the file has been reached. So we would do with open pickle dump data, right? And then we do with open RB. We have object one equals pickle load file. Successfully loads the first object, and then so we have to do it within the context of open again. If we were to open and then load again, that would reload the first object, right? Okay, so if we used with open 2x instead of 1x and loaded 1x each time, it would load the first object twice. Trying to load two objects. Okay, key takeaways behavior. When you try to load an object beyond its ability, it raises an EOF error. Use the loop to try except read all the data file structure. Only one valid. Yeah, gotcha. Let me know. So if you use with open 2x instead of 1x and loaded 1x each time, it would load the first object twice. Yes, that's correct. If you use with open twice, or open the file twice and call pickle load each time, the file pointer will reset to the beginning of the file each time the file is reopened. As a result, the first object will be loaded both times. So when you use with open file pickle RBE, gotcha. Okay, I understand. That makes sense. So import pickle data 1, data 2 with open pickle dump, and then yeah, well dump is different, right? Because dump is writing to the file as opposed to reading. I would assume that those are completely different. But then when we do load, loads first object, and then loads first object. Okay, this makes sense. What do you do if you want to load sequential objects? To load sequentially, keep the file open and call pickle load repeatedly without reopening the file. So this is all new to me. This is why I'm learning this. Reopen the file. Using with open twice, the file pointer resets to the beginning, so you load to the first object again. To load multiple objects sequentially, keep the file open and call times. If you need random access to objects in a pickle file, consider tracking their byte offsets using tel. Random access to consider tracking byte offsets using tel. Would you like more examples of how to pickle the file? No, that's good enough. Okay, so that means in this with context manager, we would okay. So yeah, I love this one. With open save file RB, load and save file, set dictionary, pull load, save file. So technically this could throw an error. Well, no, it couldn't because we already know that it's not empty. So, if the file is not empty, then we know it is populated. Else, with open file RB, so then we would load the first object, which we know exists because the file size is not 0. But then we would need to try to load in the second object. So then we would say try. And try to do load save file, and then this is attempts to load the second object, which is always the game ID. Cool. Load save file, attempts to load the second object, which is always the game ID. Alright, and then except EOF error, right? That means it's in the file. Well, then we know that the game ID has not been saved. So if the game ID has not been saved, that doesn't actually necessarily mean that it hasn't been sent, you know. But if it got sent but not saved, then it doesn't matter, right? Because well, okay, so So I'm thinking about a few different things here, such as I just write this down as a note. Just because game ID hasn't been saved, But that would mean that like literally the game was so early on that it didn't get saved. That like we'd basically just scrap the game in that case, right? Like if it didn't get saved, that means the game, someone disconnected so soon that we just make them queue up and start all over again. So like we're not gonna add in logic, you know, for when they started the game and game ID got sent over the network, but it disconnected so fast it didn't get to save the game ID. Like I'm not going down that like we're not making a AAA title here, bro. This is just a game, like, you know, whatever. So anyway, we're not even gonna like be that petty. I'm not like the chief security officer for fucking Overwatch or something, so you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so accept EOF error. This means that means game ID has not been saved to the save file, which basically technically it could have started and been sent over network and crash happened before it got saved, but that's too petty. We're not worried about that. Yeah, we're just not worried about that scenario. Means game ID has not been saved to the save file, which basically means that this is 99.9% chance not a reconnect because game ID hasn't been saved. So then in this case we would know that is reconnect would be false still, like, well, not still, but in because it's if, then bam, is reconnects false. And we could start it off as false or whatever, but that's a little bit cheesy, isn't it? Just to save a one line. I like this way better. So now we have is reconnect is equal to false. But if it does work, then if end of file error is raised, there wasn't another object to load in the file. Yeah, so attempts to load second object means, and then it's not reconnect. Save files. What's game would you save the save file? Save file. What's exists there? Okay, yeah, we can copy this. Note like so, and load save file, attempts to load second object, which always game ID, except EOF error. Okay, so if it does successfully load it, well then that is going to be the game ID, right? Yeah, so we would say game ID equals that. Yeah, so game ID equals pickle load. So not gain ID, but game ID. So there we go. Try game ID, blah, 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 blah. Okay, moving on. So after that, after, let's say it is a reconnect, that means we get the game ID. In this case, we say game ID, or rather is reconnect, is equal to true, right? Because since we received a game ID and saved it to the save file previously, this means the we got disconnected from an unfinished game. So then in this case, what do we do now? Okay, well, okay, so now we can get rid of this. Pseudocode for loading a game ID from save file. So we actually like find the proper data in the big file game ID. So we took care of this in this place. Okay. So then, if local save file's game ID is equal to none, it can only start a new game. Current game, multiple choice, and start a game. So in this case, now we'll change this. Okay, so I'll see what I was doing here. That's why I created is reconnect. We'll say if is reconnect. So now we have this section, which is going to be pseudo code for determining which options are available for choosing game type. Reconnect / start new game. Okay, beautiful. Now, whoops, we say if is reconnect is equal to none, is reconnect is equal to false, which meaning it's not possible that it was a reconnect, then we can only start a new game. So we change this. Means client can only start new game. Okay, so now we take current game. We don't actually have current game assigned. Below line, don't actually have current game assigned yet. Okay, so we need to take care of the current game being assigned. Currently, where does current game get assigned at? Why is it? Okay, here we go. Should we get rid of this? Should the game file should happen only after the game starts, aka after both clients are connected. That's not true. Yeah, so we get rid of this. Get rid of this shit. I'm gonna read the fact that you think to save the file somehow. We can get rid of that. Okay, if reconnect is equal to false, first time connecting, not a reconnect, get rid of this. So if true, client ID equals none. Please look for a pipeline. If true, reconnect is equal to false. Okay. If true, placeholder client ID equals none. Will this section well, client ID is equal to none. So we have to get the client ID before we can assign the current game. Okay. So that's a little bit of a problem, right? Well, we would have to, we could make this work by using just to default, we would just have it set to player 1 initially, right? So if reconnect is a good false means client can only start a new game. Don't actually have current game assigned yet. Put a note here. Technically, we could use P1 game to start. Would simply use P1 game. Draw a window main after running P1 game multiple choice function, and it would work just fine. Yeah, so we would actually just change this to be game multiple choice function current game, and instead it would be P1 game, and then we'll have start new game. This is a we don't want to. And then say elif reconnect connect is equal to true. This means we can start new game or reconnect to previously started game. Yeah. Okay. Then we would say, in this case, P1 game. And same thing here, pass P1 game. And just copy this because that's what it is. It's copy, or that's what we can do. Alright, now we have option 1 start a game. Duh, we know that's not a non-reconnect. Okay, and then we would say if how do we what do we do? Selected choice? Let's see, hold up. Play selected cards. Game, click card on the slide. So when we have the multiple choice, multiple choice active is set to true. And then we have it built into draw window main to where whenever multiple choice active is set to true, it will draw the multiple choice text. And so this is, we're looking for in the event handler actually. No, this would be under game. Alright, so our timer is up and we're gonna look at the game. We're looking for the event handler section. Let's see. This is static method, multiple choice function. While multiple choice active is equal to true, pass. But what does it assign the value of the choice to? Once we make our choice, what is it assigned to? Okay, here we go. Yeah, we don't want to get a copyright strike, baby. All right, probably already got one based off just those like 2 seconds, which is unfortunate, but I think that's how it works. Should have kept a better eye on that. Oh well. Now, okay, here we go. Selected choice. There we go. Selected choice. And this should probably be called selected multiple choice because it always refers to the multiple choice. But choice implies having choices, and that implies multiple choice. So it's kind of the name kind of works as it is, doesn't it? Sort of, anyway. But is anything perfect, honestly? So now, connect is equal to false, connect is equal to true, and then 26 function reconnect to 2 games, start new game, button function via while loop, blah 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 blah. Okay, so then we need to know, say, is P1 game dot selected choice is equal to reconnect game. Then is this for reconnect or is this for new game? So no, this is for a start new game. If the selected choice is equal to this, then that means we would then get a multiple choice function, connect to our server, and then we say if P1 game selected choice is equal to connect to our server, mode, and then otherwise, because choice is connected to the machine, we would then equal true connection local machine. Set started game or local or remote, and then we would save. We need to save this to save file. To save file. Let's take care of the trash today. Trash goes out tomorrow. And here we do that immediately after, right here, based on the choice that we made. But I would actually rather do it, make sure it happens. Anyway, so So if P1 game selected choice is equal to reconnect to game, we don't need to run local or remote server choice function because this variable would already be saved to save file. It would be saved along with the game ID. What is this local or remote server? Didn't I get rid of that? Yeah, I got rid of that. Yeah, we don't need to. Well, we still need to load it in, right, to know which one to connect to. Yeah, so we would need a load. So let's just change this to say load local. To determine method of connection. And then if you use checkpoint system, get checkpoint ID from save file, run checkpoint script code. Okay, so I think we made really good progress there. I know it doesn't seem like so much, but I'm actually really happy with this progress. This is actually pretty good. Like, I'm actually impressed with being able to figure that out, and it's not so hard. And I think that our logic is pretty solid so far. If is reconnect is equal to so what we can do is, just in case is reconnect for whatever reason didn't get assigned. Well, no, we would want to handle that in a different way, I think. So I actually wouldn't want to pre-create it as none. So if is reconnect is equal to false, we click on start new game. And then either if reconnect is equal to true, then we have multiple choice function, P1 game, reconnect game, start new game. Then if P1 game, city of positioning which items are available. Okay. Then if P1 game section is equal to start new game, then we would change it to where multiple choice to choose remote or local machine. If P1 game selected choice is equal to connect to remote server, then then we would connect with local equal to false to connect to the remote server. Okay. And then it's a blocking operation and started game local remote. Okay, and then elif P1 game selected choice. P1 game selected choice is equal to connect. So choice is equal to connect to local machine. Then con equal equals and connect local true, and this will connect to the local machine. I'm getting really tired at this point, so I'm having trouble keeping my focus right now. But we do, then we would say the elif p1 game selector is equal to reconnect to game. Then we want to load that, not the function, but the actual, what's it called? Started game, local or remote. There we go. Use get checkpoint system, get checkpoint ID. Right, so I think we're on the right track here. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do is go ahead and save that started gamer local. So to do that, we would use with open and go down here and say, kind of div this out. This is how I do that. How do we use dump? Function uses serialize a Python object into a file so it can be reloaded using pickle load. This is how you save Python objects to a file with pickle dump. Pickle dump. So you do the object and then the file, and then the protocol. Object is the file you want to serialize and save. File is the object open in binary write mode, and then protocol is optional. The protocol version used for pickling defaults to the latest protocol available. Oldest human less efficient binary format order less efficient. Added support Python 2.3. Use Python 3.0. Default for Python 3.4. Use large files, more types. 4.4. Protocol 5. Use Python 3. Improves performance. So if protocol equals 5. Okay, cool. Default facilities protocol available. Gotcha. Okay, so then we would say with open the save file, WBS file. Pickle dump, and then we do the object then the file. So it's object then file. So we're gonna save the started game local or remote, and then we're gonna save that to the save file. But we want to this is for start new game. Connect. Okay, so now we need to, oh, so that would actually not be the second. Well, yeah, first, well, we need that game ID probably to connect to the right thing, right? Because that would determine like which socket or whatever, because you know, I guess like each socket would be associated with each connection or some shit. Like I don't have that figured out yet, but we would need the get the game ID. Get the game ID so we know which game to reconnect to. Each game ID is supposed to be from server side is game specific, meaning each new game running on the server has a new game ID. creates that line, we need to determine how to connect to the proper game using game ID. And then we also need to save the game ID. Save, well, we'll do that first actually. Save game ID. Well, wait, save the game ID. We got the game ID, right? Oh, so we would have to. So if is reconnect is equal to false. We need, well, we would still need to get our game ID if it's a new game, right? Fuck. So it's just a little bit complicated, you know, it's not as simple as I wanted it to be. But we need to well, either way, we're gonna get the game ID. So actually, hold up, we could do this like this. Select a choice, start a new game, and then back to the remote server, we get the game ID. This is not right. Why is this? No. That's the wrong spot. I'm tripping, dude. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm an idiot. Here we go. So this is where we say load started to determine method of connection. And then we need to get the game ID so we know. Get the game ID. Well, how do we get the game ID? Well, we already know that it exists. We already have the game ID. We already loaded it. Right. So when we already have it saved, it's already in the save file. So in this case, we already have the game ID. If we're starting a new game, as soon as we start a new game, we want to, if we're connecting to the remote server, the first thing we want to do is get game ID from server. Get unique server-side game ID from server for reconnect. And then for reconnecting, and then we have what else? Not get unique SS. We need we call this get unique SS. Then we need to save game ID to save file. Save file, baby. Okay. Yeah. And then that would be the second thing saved, right? Because the first thing saved would be okay. Yeah, if we're starting a new game, what's the first thing that gets saved? Well, the first thing that gets saved is the offset dictionary. So the offset dictionary, it's the first object, right? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and quit, but I kind of want to continue. Fucking ears are hurting, honestly, from this headset. That should help loosen it up a little bit. It's still touching my head, but it's like puts pressure on my ears. It's kind of painful. So the loading the save file offset to reference game ID's offset location value. We don't need to do that. We know it's the second object. And this is just how it works. This is how it works. Realized we actually don't need the offset dict. To get the game ID, because we know the game ID be the first, second object in the save file. I'll probably want to refactor this section according to that truth. Would also want to determine whether we want the game ID to be the first object saved to save file, since we don't need the offset dict until the third or so object, since we do know some of the constant order of the objects we will encounter, therefore we know the save order. Therefore we don't need the offset values in this case at this early section of the game. Right. So we're going to stop here, because I think this is a good place to stop. And we'll just put the date. And so this is line 333 in client refactor. So let's go over here and put that. Alright, so we went until 5:57. Alright, that's really good. And now we're going to do our staging and committing. So this is going to be 5:58 to 6 o'clock. Alright, so now we can go to oh shit. Oh, this was like work though, bro. You know what I mean? It like wore me out. This it sucked the life right out of me, bro. But I mean, we put in work though. I'm actually happy, but I'm just fucking tired, bro. I'm tired. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, and that's fine. So Let's see, baby. Use AI for solution. Yeah, I mean, I don't even need to put that anymore. Like, I use AI so hardcore, I don't need to even remind myself to use AI. Okay, so we did 9:49, and then we also did 4:26 to 6 o'clock, which is, that is 2 hours and then another hour and a half. So that's 3.5 hours. That's actually pretty good. Um, that's pretty solid today. That's good work, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and commit, staging commit our changes. Things to do, actually, we will actually put this here, just so I know when I look at things to do, where we left off. Back in upside dig from PKL. Loading game ID, determine use dump probably save data received, save received data CS prior to deserialization. Receiving data code of the data to be used uploads. About this, what? I don't really know what I'm saying right there. Structured instruction. Game state system implement CS checkpoint system. Okay, so we'll just call this we'll call this issue, we'll just create a new issue and we'll call it client refactor beginning section and finish beginning section final form. And yeah, so that's where we stopped. So get rid of this. Loading game ID at begin CS script for access game. So we can get rid of that one. Yeah, so that's where we are right now, and we'll do git branch. We are in the root of the project directory. We are on the correct branch, so we can do git add dot, added everything. Now we do git commit -m, and we have to copy this devlog message. So we copy that. Now there we go. We committed it. We have 3 files changed, 57 insertions, 49 deletions. Git push Canasta secondary. So now we're gonna push that to the remote repo. For some reason that's taking a while. So it doesn't do this. Freeze. This is strange. Never seen it do this before. It's never. What's going on? Let's try that again. So this is not working, actually. I have never done this before. I mean, I have never encountered this before, where it doesn't push. It's odd. Try to re-add it, and then nothing to commit. Well, this is strange. I wonder if I go to my GitHub, is there anything like up with that? Is there a reason? Something happened? Okay, yeah, so we're on. So 11 months ago we branched off from yesterday. So yeah, it's showing yesterday. We have 445 commits. We're not showing today. Oh, it says the request URL returned error 503. Unable to access. Okay, that's strange. So I've never encountered this before. I'll have to add this to things to do actually. I'll say git error at end of session allowed to add it but couldn't push to remote repo due to this error. There we go. So it's it said 503, and then next it said 500. So first attempt, and then the second attempt, it gave us this. Second attempt gave us the 500 error. Internal server error. And maybe it's because I'm like logged onto it, but I don't think that would matter. So let me log out and see if like does that change anything? Let's see. Okay, so we signed out. So it's giving us 500. Okay, now it's still just like hanging. So we logged out. Let's see if it gives us a 503 or a 500. But I'm like done anyway, so I'm about to just clock out. Okay. So yeah, it's just hanging. We'll figure it out. It's probably some simple shit. Anyway, so we're not gonna be able to push to the remote, but we can do our local. Almost forgot about that. So let's go over to our programming projects, Canasta, be the little one, and then we'll go to backup, and we'll paste in the new one. And now we can jump into it, go to text, go to the end, and that is showing today's work. So indeed today. Update the title of the folder. There we go. Alright guys, that's it for today. I'll see you maybe tomorrow, maybe not. I do have some other things that I have to take care of with my motorcycle, getting that registered and stuff, but and some other legal stuff I gotta take care of, but I'll try to still stream and do some coding, so I'll see you then. Have a good